But before I do that, I want to just talk about what are the main options for you at the exit stage for your company. There are three of them, and I'll give you a fourth one that is also there, but it's one to be a little bit more cautious about. Its profitability is growing even faster than that. Why wouldn't I want to own that over the long term if I love it and enjoy it and see a real future to it? Another client who spends about 10 hours, 5 to 10 hours per week, that works out to be 20, 25, 30, 40 hours per month, probably averages about 20 to 30 hours per month. Is he passive? Is he not passive?
Maui Mastermind presents the Business Coach Podcast, answering your questions and providing real actionable insights for building a better, stronger, more profitable business without sacrificing your time, life, or freedom anymore.
Well, welcome to the Business Coach. I'm your host, David Finkel. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about something very important. We're going to be talking about optionality, specifically you having the option as the business owner to either continue to scale your company, to transition to more of a passive role in the company, or even to sell. You know, so many business owners work so hard to build a thriving, successful company. And chances are, if you've been part of this podcast, watching or listening to it for the last several months, that you probably do in fact have a thriving, successful business. We tend to focus on and find people in the marketplace are own a successful, profitable company, and they come to us because they want to grow it faster and they want to mature it faster so that the business is easier to own, that doesn't require them sacrificing their family, health, or life to do it, and the business is more valuable because while they're increasing their profit, their EBITDA, they're also increasing the multiple at which that company could command if it was being sold, partly by having more profit, which means by nature a company with 3 million of EBITDA is going to sell for a higher multiple of a company with $300,000 of profit. But also the company is more mature so that profit has been sustained. And a company that's more matured, better systems, better internal controls, higher caliber staff and team, better strategic structure. All these things mean that somebody will pay an additional amount on the multiple than they would without those things. And so let's make this clear with a story. So one of our clients, he runs a trial service actually. They do expert witness work. His name is Scott. And so Scott started off in this industry that he was, like many business owners, he was the main person selling his service, right? A lot of you started that way yourself. And his service was how to do expert testimony for digital things. Like he can go into a cell phone and find the history that was deleted on there. So people who are in trials, they use his services way back when to be the guy that could forensically analyze computers and cell phones. And he's got a host of other experts that do forensic work in other parts of this that where trial lawyers turn to his company for this. Now, early on, he was a prototypical average middle stage level 2 business owner where he was the one directing the main part of the business and he was the main witness for his company. When he came to us, though, he was actually past that point. He was what we'll call an advanced stage level 2 business. It wasn't just him as the only expert witness. There are multiple other expert witnesses forensically in other areas, but he was still one of the important witnesses, and he was still the one running the sales and marketing, and he was still the one making sure to manage the expert witness projects, and he was still the one overseeing the financial pillar of the company. And as he started working together with us, he grew and expanded his sales and revenue, expanded his profitability, but at the same time they started building better systems and hiring better people and building out the business as a business. Well, about 2.5 years ago, he hired his company's CEO. He basically replaced himself in as the leader of the company. Now, he's still the owner, which means he effectively is like the board of directors who holds the CEO accountable. But Scott's comment was he loves being there on the stand. He loves being in that witness chair, being an expert witness, trying to outsmart the opposing counsel who's trying to trip him up. For him, that game of cat and mouse is just like, it's like a drug to him in a good way. He loves it. He's probably not going to stop doing that. And here's the thing, so many business owners think that their only option when they want to exit their role in the company is to sell the company. It's like, well, David, I'm supposed to sell the company, aren't I? Hey, I got this unsolicited offer from someone offering me 10, 15, $20 million for the company. Wouldn't I be crazy not to take the money? And what I tell clients is in many cases, they're crazy to take the money. And so let me walk you through a quick decision tree that helps you know should you sell or not sell. But before I do that, I want to just talk about what are the main options for you at the exit stage for your company. There are three of them. And I'll give you a fourth one that is also there, but it's one to be a little bit more cautious about. The first one is you could sell the company. Absolutely. So one of the choices you have is in fact to sell the company. One of the choices is for you to stay in actively working in the business and to actively scale it. That's a viable choice for you. The third is to step into more of a passive ownership role, recognizing that if you're a owner of a $28 million a year company and you're stepping out, for example, like Scott, and backfilling yourself with a CEO and a full suite of leaders, that's not the same thing as owning a share of Apple. Like if I own a share of Apple, I have zero management responsibilities whatsoever. I might look at that once a year or every 6 months to see if I need to rebalance or make a different decision. Or if some major news comes from the market, I might make a decision about buying more of that stock or selling some of that stock. But I don't do anything with it. In a privately held company like this, where you're the main owner or the only owner, we're looking at, does it take you less than 10 hours per month to manage your interest? That's what we'll call passive ownership. Now, that's an arbitrary number. I want to acknowledge that. I've got a client of ours, and he runs a manufacturing business, and he might do 10 or 15 hours per week. Is he passive or not passive? Well, he's not really active, but he's not fully passive. He's somewhere in between. Another client who spends about 10 hours, 5 to 10 hours per week, that works out to be 20, 25, 30, 40 hours per month, probably averages about 20 to 30 hours per month. Is he passive? Is he not passive? To my mind there's a point in time that we know you're passive. 10 hours or less per month, you're passive. 5 or 10 hours per week, you're probably still fairly passive, maybe not all the way there. So again, it's a gradation. So these are your main options. There is another one that we're seeing more and more, which is to pass on the business to your heirs, whether it means selling it to them, or usually it means having them take a smaller equity stake over time where they're earning into that business. And I know as a business owner myself, my 3 sons, or two of my 3 sons, or 3 of my 3 sons would like to do the business with me someday. I would love it. I mean, that would be like catnip, like heaven. Like I get more time with my kids doing something that they're interested in and that I happen to really enjoy. Oh my gosh, that would be great. But that's probably not the main way that most people are going to do that, because they have kids who might not have the capabilities, or more commonly just simply don't have the interest to do the business. So when we come back to optionality here, I want to come back here to this idea of you as the business owner having to know, is selling the right choice for you or not? So I want to give you a decision tree to go through to think, is selling really the right exit for you? So the first question you need to ask yourself, and I think this is an important one, which is, do you actually enjoy and find an interest in the business? If the answer is no, you should be selling the company, right? If you have no interest in the business, then you actively participating, and it's probably not worth doing. I mean, life's too short. Even if you're making a gobs of money there, I guess you could say, well, I'm passive in the business completely. That's a different matter. But if you're actively in the business working on it, but you just can't stand it, you don't enjoy it, why? Right? It's just life's too short with that. If you do enjoy the business, now you have to ask the next question. And the next question, the next layer of questions is going to be this, which is, does the business have a real future? In other words, is the business one that's going to sustain itself and or grow in the future? Or is it, are you doing a business that is going to soon be replaced by a big competitor, or technological shifts or shifts in the marketplace? If there is not really a long-term future for that business, sell it as fast as you can, because before other people realize that the future isn't there. If there is a future and the business has a real future for it going forward, now you have a choice to keep that business even longer. And so now you ask one last question, which is, how fast is it growing? We're going to look at that as its growth rate. And the growth rate we're talking about here is something called compounded annual growth rate, right? If its CAGR, or compounded annual growth rate, is not very high at all, so it's low or no growth, selling becomes more of a choice, but that's up to you. But if you have high growth, then I probably am going to hold on to the business. So if I have a business I really enjoy, that's got a real future, and it's growing at 10+% per year compounded annual growth rate, personally, I think you're crazy to sell the company. Why? Because there's nowhere else that you can have the same degree of certainty or control over your future. Because a business that you enjoy, that has a real long-term strength to it, that's growing at 10% or more, what that means is if the revenue is growing 10% or more per year, profitability is growing at least that much, if not faster. Most of our coaching clients, if they're growing by, say, 15% per year of revenue, their profitability is growing even more than that. 18%, 20%, 30% profitability growth. And since the valuation for the company is based on profit, not on just the revenue, as you start getting a larger business, that means that the valuation's going even more. Plus, as this company goes from 5 to 10 million, from 10 million to 20 million in sales, it's going to command a larger multiple. As you go from $500,000 of profit to selling $2 million of profit, selling $5 million of profit in the sale, it's going to command a much larger multiple. You know, you're selling a company that might be making $500,000 a year profit, you might sell it for 4 or 5 times earnings, depending on the industry. But when you're selling a company that has $5 million of EBITDA, you might be selling it for 10, 12 times earnings or more. That's a big deal. Plus, along the way, it's churning out a lot of cash flow, right? There's a lot of cash flow coming off that business, and you're enjoying it. You're probably not working as hard as you once upon a time did for that. It's a common trend we see with our clients, wherein, you know, once upon a time early on, they were taking a week of year of vacation at the very start of their company. And here they are years later. Now they're taking, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. In my case, I take 5 months off a year. Why wouldn't I want to keep owning a business that's growing at double-digit rates? Its profitability is growing even faster than that. Why wouldn't I want to own that over the long term if I love it and enjoy it and see a real future to it? And I got to take 5 months off every year. I can even take off more than that. Quite frankly, I have the opposite problem. I really don't want to take even that much time, but I know my kids are young. They're still in middle and high school respectively. I know I've got, a couple years left with my 2 older sons. I've got maybe 6 years left with my younger son. I know that. And it's hard to know when they're going to want to spend time with me. So I need massive time with them so that when they're ready to spend it with me, I'm available. Be a little desperate. But hey, I can acknowledge that. I'm sure they talk that through with each other and their friends. God, my dad's so clingy. My dad's so desperate. I guess it's better for that than to say my dad, is so distant and removed. He's always working. He never wants to spend time with me or something like that. But hey, that was a tangent. My point being that if you have a business that you really enjoy, that has a real sustainable future, and is growing fast, financially speaking, you will almost always be better off holding that business longer. Lifestyle-wise, if you're enjoying it, why wouldn't you want to do it longer? Because all the gain of enterprise value, you're taking your company that was once worth $5 million, and over the next 10 years, you're making it worth $50 or $75 million. That gain, that growth of from $5 to $50 million, that's tax deferred, right? That's an unrealized gain. You pay no tax with that. That's a great way to compound your wealth. And along the way, you've pulled out millions of dollars of cash flow to fund lifestyle and to fund giving. Yes, you'll pay tax along the way on that money, but you'll also have it to actively contribute to your net worth outside the company. This is something we've done for years with our upper end coaching clients at the Business Success Summit, which we've been doing now for 23 years. That annual Success Summit every November. We're in Hawaii with that part of it. There's one more element I want to talk about for optionality. And this is the win that no one talks about. People assume or think, hey, that what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to sell the company sometime. And I can't tell you the number of clients who I've had who turn to me and say, I got an unsolicited offer for selling my company. And it was a big number. And their greed gland kicked in. And I've had to just talk them through this decision tree and let them make whatever choice they want, but to do it from a smart decision. You know, I can think of this one client. I'm going to change his name because I want to be respectful. I haven't got his permission to share the story with where it identifies him, but I'll call this person Carl. And so Carl got an offer to buy his company for effectively $11 million. Carl was roughly 50, 55 years old when he got the offer. I don't know exactly. I don't know the dates of birth of clients, but roughly about 50, 55 years old. And his mind was, hey, that would do me for the rest of my life. That sounds pretty good. I never thought I could build a business that someone would pay me $11 million cash for. And I remember talking with Carl. And I said, Carl, first of all, that's $11 million pre-tax. You're going to end up getting significantly less than that after tax. Number two, you've told me you really enjoy the business. One of your kids is actively participating in the business. You're enjoying it. Your role currently in the business, you're working 20, 25 hours a week, and you're taking 6 to 8 weeks of vacation, a pure vacation a year. So you're enjoying it a lot. It's a business that's a very sticky business, this particular business. It's going to work. Your customers stay with you, 90+% retention of your customers, and you're growing right now at somewhere about 15, 20% revenue growth per year over the last 5 years. And you expect to have at least that growth in the next 5 years. What that means is, yes, 11 million is a lot, but let's just project out what that growth will be at. Let's even use 15%. And as we went through the numbers here, he was going to make a heck of a lot more money by holding off on that sale, even though they were offering him a fairly substantial check for his company. Yet he still felt constrained, like he needed to sell. In his case, the deciding factor was he wanted more time with his wife, and his wife really wanted him out of the business. And that's fine, right? That's a choice he gets to make. And that's the idea with optionality. I want you to make sure that you control whether you sell, scale, or take more of a passive role, or perhaps even get your kids involved in the business. But if you do that one, please make sure they have some job experience outside of working just for you, so they can learn some skills and a little bit of humility, so they don't come in thinking that they're entitled to all of that. But that's another aside. And again, the decision tree, you get to decide. You know, as it stands for me, I really love the business I get to do. I love the role I get to play with Maui Mastermind. I love the impact I have on business owners' lives and their staff members and their families. I love it. I get emails or conversations at live events all the time where people say, David, I'm so appreciative. Here's what I'm doing. Let me just tell you. I believe the future is definitely on trend. I don't think that someone's going to intermediate the need for how to be a strong, intelligent, and effective coach and have the program that makes sure that we consistently deliver on the body of promises to a business owner. I don't think there's any other coaching program out there that can deliver like we do. I mean, you look at, to the best of my knowledge, we're the only coaching program at our scale that guarantees results for clients in their first 12 months, a return on investment of 200%. I don't know any other coaching program that does that. Why? Because I'm confident enough that if our client does their part, they're going to get the result. I'm confident with that part. And then finally, we're growing at anywhere from 10, 15% compounded annual growth rate, depending if you're looking at a 5 or a 10-year window of history, which means that the business is growing. All these things say, for me, I'm going to continue to scale with a little bit of passive in there, right? I'm going to continue to take plenty of time off, but I'm going to continue to work actively in the business because I enjoy it. Doing the things inside the business where I can contribute the most value and I enjoy. Which brings me to the final part of optionality. The final layer of optionality is when you build your business to that advanced stage level 2 or even into level 3, You now have the choice for what you want your role to be in the business. Early on, you had to do pretty much whatever the business required, even if some of those things were emotionally painful or heavy or stressful or cumbersome. But today in your business, or certainly down the road in 3 years or 5 years, depending where you're at in your progression, you're going to have the choice for what you want to be doing. And sometimes you can even choose to do things that might not be the best and highest use of you if your value is, continue to enjoy the business more. Like there are some things in the business that I could do that would contribute to more value, but I'm not willing to do. Like if I were willing to go back doing a lot more large group keynote talks to, this conference that has, 2,000 business owners, and that conference, we probably would grow faster. I just don't want to do it, right? This podcast is kind of my labor of love project to be able to reach a broader audience. How can 10, 20, 30,000 business owners watch an episode or more versus going and doing that in a live event? I just don't want to do the travel. 20 years ago, probably would have loved to do the travel. 15 years ago, well, actually 16 or 17 years ago, pre-kids, yeah, probably would have enjoyed the travel. Today, I don't want to do that much travel away. When my kids are gone and out of the house, I'll probably drown myself in doing more of those talks in person because I can bring my wife Heather and we can make a fun time of it. I enjoy the people that are there, and I won't have the same family considerations that at that point in time. But optionality means you get to choose what you want to do in the business for your reasons. And you don't have to make any apologies for it. I was talking to a business owner recently, and I said to this business owner, you don't have to apologize to your staff members, just be direct with them. Yes, you're choosing to take time away from the business, right? That's what you get to do as the owner with that part. Give your team members 2 weeks or 3 weeks of paid vacation, but you as the owner might be taking 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or in my case, 20 weeks with that. But hey, you're also the one there that's giving them a payment no matter what. That if something goes on to disrupt the business, you're the one that's going to suffer most from that part of it. And quite frankly, that's the deal they signed up for. I can remember early on in the early years, the hours weren't 40 hours with 20 weeks of vacation. It was 60, 80 hours. And vacation was a lot less in the early years of doing businesses, probably a lot like you. So optionality means you get to do what you want in the business and with the business. And so now we come to the end of this particular episode of The Business Coach. And I want you to leave with this question, right? What is it that you most want from your company? What do you most want for you in the business? What do you most want from the business itself? In the business says, what's the role that you really want to be playing? If the business needs more or different from you today, put your simple plan and timeline in place to get yourself over the next 12, 36 months, whatever it's going to take, to get to the point where you can do the role that you want to do, not the role that the business needs you to do today. If you're already there, wonderful. Be intentional about that. The second place is, I want you now to remember you have a different way to think about what your exit from the business will look like. Is it to sell the company? Is it to continue to actively participate and scale it? Is it to play more of a passive role or some hybrid there? Is it to transition into ownership by your kids, your adult children? And we talked about this simple 3-question decision tree of, do I enjoy the business still? Does the business have a real future for it? And is the business growing at a fairly good growth rate, at least 10% or more per year? These are all things that now give you some information for you to make the best choice. I want to say thank you for being part of the Business Coach podcast, the audience. I really appreciate that. I want to put out there that if there are other business owners who are struggling, either they're doing a role in their company that they're not enjoying, that they don't really need to, or that they think their only option is to sell the company, pass them a link to the podcast. Maybe this podcast will shake up some of their accepted givens that they really haven't thought through the other way. And I think that would be doing a real gift for them. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next week.